Hello and welcome back to the Franchise Growth Show, where we talk with leaders that are building franchise models that scale with clarity and with value. Today's guest is Ken Boyce, the VP of Franchise Development at CyberGlobal, a brand that is taking the $250 billion cybersecurity industry and making it accessible to non technical founders. That's right, there's no tech skills necessary, no hiring engineers, and no inventory. It's just a sales forward model with high margins, recurring revenue, and enterprise level support. Let's break down what makes this model work and why now is the moment to go and get in. First and foremost, Ken, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate you and the audience out there. Glad to answer any questions you have and educate you a little bit more on the cyber global opportunity.
Awesome. Well, let's start off with context. How did
Sure.
Cyber Global go from an enterprise cybersecurity firm into a franchise brand?
Great question. I'm actually one of the partners of the business too. So there's three of us, if you want to call us the three owners of Cyber Global now. But prior to a year and a half ago, it was my business partners Daniel and Andre that started Cyber Global 8 years ago, and they were building and working with IT companies and they considered themselves as kind of a white label, behind the curtain, Wizard of Oz, as I call them, because they're a lot smarter than I am. They're the tech guys, they're the cybersecurity guys. I'm not. I'm a 30-year franchise veteran and all that. But they actually approached me to say, hey, does franchising work for our business model? And we went through a couple months of going back and forth and all that, and it really is. And of course, they needed somebody that had the experience I had, and it just happened to be good timing for me that I wanted to get in to become a franchisor again. And long story short is we decided to start franchising in November of last year. The reason for the and I like to make things really simple. And let's make it simple for this. Is that in the cybersecurity world is when you when I talked to Daniel and Andre, I said, what's the key thing that really sets you apart from most of your competitors? And this is prior to franchising, right? Is they said local advisor, global expertise. I went, interesting. Local advisor, local person. We're in 18 different countries. So that would be somebody local to that country that speaks the language, understands the culture, but it doesn't have that global expertise. They might have two or three people in the back shop, as we like to say, doing cybersecurity. Well, for their customers are like, I love your local, don't like the idea that you got two or three people in the back shop doing cybersecurity, right? So that blend of local advisor, global expertise really took off. Now, for the U.S. market, and I focus more on the U.S. market, is let's take that from a country standpoint to a state or a city standpoint. Is now that let's say, for instance, we have a competitor that's out of California or Texas, or they have offices there, but they don't have offices across the U.S. Well, what you're going to hear from customers, which we've already heard over the last 8 years, is they prefer to deal with somebody local, but they want that global expertise, right? So now our franchisees can go to a customer, just say your business, and say, listen, I'm local market, I'm local franchisee. I own this area and I manage Cyber Global from my area. I'm not technical. I have my technical team that I will introduce you to them. They'll be able to do it. Now, as a franchisee, that's us. They don't have any technical team. They're introducing us, and we have local people in the U.S. to do the support side and all that is so that really separates us from the competitors out there in the market. So I went, franchising is beautiful because you have two options. One is you can go down the corporate America traditional model, and okay, let's hire a regional manager here and then a salesperson for this area and a salesperson for this area. But I'm kind of biased when I say this, is I've been in franchising 30 years, so I'll try to be nice here. I have a distaste for corporate America. Okay, and for our franchise model, our franchise owners, they're all in. Like, it's their business. They're not looking over their shoulder every 6 months should I take a new job or this opportunity or anything like that. So what our vision is to have 40 to 50 franchisees in every single major city, We already have 14, which is great. So by the end of the year, yeah, I know. The end of the year, hopefully, we're going to be around 40. We'll have basically the whole country covered with individual people in each city. That local advisor now is cured. We already have the global expertise, is what we're filling in that. So when I looked at what had already built, so it wasn't like, we're starting this franchise from scratch. We're still an emerging franchise, if you want to call us that. But we've been in business 8 years doing this. So it's not like we don't know how to do this. It's a matter of, oh, you know what, this business model, it definitely looks like it's going to be a better fit to be able to do the franchising part. So from a very high level, that's a little bit history of the company, where we're going, how we're implementing this franchise. And for the ideal candidate out there that's looking at CyberGlobal, it doesn't mean you don't have to have the technical ability. As I like to say, you need to know the icing on the cake. So we're going to train you, teach you to know about the services, know how the dots connect. But when somebody cuts into that cake and wants to get into okay, how's the cake made? Timeout. That's not the role of our franchisee. That's where they bring our sales support person, that tech person. And in the tech industry, anybody out there that's in the tech industry, in the sales part of it, understands we're not changing the model. That's how it's always worked. You've got the salespeople that kick open the door, and then they bring the tech person in to be able to talk about what the services are needed for that. So I hope that answers your question, Joe. In a nutshell, that gives you a little bit more of the history, where we're going, and why I think this model was ideal for franchising. And hey, we're the first cybersecurity franchise in the world, so it's kind of cool to say that too, from our ego side, if we're going to have ego involved with it, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love it. And the fact that you're creating cybersecurity to be able to be available to business owners that maybe don't necessarily have that high level of technical acumen is fantastic. So I know you touched on it a little bit already, but would love to hear maybe just a tad more, because the franchisees obviously do not do the tech stuff. The HQ
Yeah,
team does, right? So they're not
yeah,
necessarily delivering the service, they're selling the service.
yeah.
What is some of those maybe common misconceptions that a new prospect or a new
Sure.
candidate who's looking into it has, and how do you kind of course correct them?
Well, one from the technical standpoint is that, how am I going to look in front of the customer? And what I say to people, even technical people out there, I've been on calls with companies that want to partner with us and all that. And my first thing is, I'm not the tech guy. Okay, so don't ask me the technical questions. So you just deflate that right away. So you don't have to worry about it. And some people, some customers might not like that. I can tell
Sure.
you it's a small percentage. Okay, most of them
Mm-hmm.
are like, okay, I get it. So let's go through everything. Now bring your tech person in, and that's what you want anyway, because we have our support tech person, sales tech person that sits there with you on every call. So the first 10, 15 calls that you're on with potential customers and relationships and partnerships, you're not alone. You're side by side. In fact, what you want to do is you just kind of want to be quiet on those calls and let them do it and learn from them, and then you get better, better, better. So don't be
Sure.
intimidated by that part of it. Is on the technical side. What really is going to separate us, and we can get into this more into your podcast here, is the flip from we've dealt for the last 8 years exclusively in the enterprise world. So the Fortune 1000. Okay, now they're big contracts. They're multi-year contracts. They're six-figure, seven-figure contracts. Who doesn't want those, right? But there's only 1,000 whales in that small pond. Um, is the real potential for Cyber Global is the small and medium-sized businesses, which in the U.S. is, you can argue anywhere from 15 to 30 million. Who cares? There's a lot, right,
A
Joe?
lot. Yep.
There's billions and millions and millions of small businesses out there. Here's the difference today. 5 years ago, our business model would not work 100%. And here's why: AI. Everybody talks about AI, right? A lot of people, you talk about it and they don't know what they're talking about. They're just using it for marketing because it's like, oh, it's cool. Everybody's talking about AI. Well, we've developed an internal AI engine that actually we designed to be able to be more efficient and cost efficient. Okay. Now, going to small and medium sized businesses, they don't have the budgets that enterprise companies have, right? We've really reduced our cost to be able to accommodate that. Now, like I said, 5 years ago, our business model wouldn't work because not only are we using AI to increase our efficiencies and decrease our costs, well, our enemy, who are the cyber criminals, they're using AI too. So before, I use this analogy with everybody. Before, the cyber criminals were fishing with one hook at a time, and they're trying to go after the big companies. They're trying to, I say blackmail them, and everybody else is, they're basically taking their data, they're taking their information, financial, they're stealing money. They're criminals. But you know what? They're not. You see those things online where they had the guys with the hoodies and over the. That's not cyber criminals. Cyber criminals are dressed like you. Cyber criminals, and I'm not calling you cyber criminal, Joe, but they're dressed like you, man. They're business people. They have revenues and expenses, right? And before, their expenses were high. So guess what? They had to target bigger companies that could get more money out of them. Not anymore. Instead of fishing with a single hook now, they're fishing with what we call a digital net, not a fishing net, a digital net. They can hit millions of companies with one press of a button. They never could do that before. So now instead of asking for 100,000, a million, 5 million, whatever, they might hit the small business and say, listen, we just locked up all your data. We want $25,000 or you're not going to get it back, or 50 or whatever. So now, because they can hit all these millions of companies, these small companies are getting hit that before they like, nobody's going to come after me. And I would agree with them before. Not anymore. That's why the franchising model works so effectively with us, because now our local franchisees can approach those small, medium-sized businesses in their communities, educate them on where their threats are, and show the protection. But more importantly, we have solutions that don't cost anywhere near what the enterprise solutions cost. Because, I equate it to your house. Everybody has a lock on their front door, right? Most people use it, right? And some people have 7 cameras and a sophisticated security system on their home, right? Whether they need it or not. Well, in a business, I like to say to a small business owner is go, when you leave your house, do you leave your front door open, your windows open? Do you leave all this open when you leave your house? And they're like, well, of course I don't, Ken. Yeah, you at least have a lock on the front door, right? Oh, yeah, but I've got this 7 security. Okay, great, good for you, right? You at least have that. What are you doing with your business? I don't know. They don't know. They need to be educated. It's not that they're not smart. They just uninformed of what the threats are there. We come in and go, at the worst case scenario, at least have a lock on the front door to protect your business from cyber criminals, or maybe you need a little more sophistication and we can be able to do it. But we're not going to come in and try to introduce a 7-camera system to somebody that really only needs a lock on the front door to be able to secure their business. And now the numbers are astonishing out there for us to be able to go do this. So AI, has its good and evil, right? Like anything else in life, when everything, new technology comes out, we're always talking about good and evil of how it's going to be implemented. Well, the AI is good as, wow, a lot of efficiencies that we can do to reduce our costs. But the evil part is the cyber criminals are becoming that much more dangerous. So answer question, that small, medium-sized business market, it's just enormous right now. And we're best positioned for it because a lot of our competitors, all they've ever done is played in the enterprise world. They don't want to play in the small business because they're like, oh, it's too small of a deal, it's too small of a contract. I don't want to go through and they don't have they don't have the people, the salespeople, the infrastructure to be able to go and target these people effectively. Not some of them are doing it okay, but it's a very small minority, and that's where we really see our next step in the sense of growing CyberGlobal and going through that part of it.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think I saw a statistic, maybe it was last week, that sometime over the next 3 to 5 years, AI, quote unquote, will replace up to 17% of the American workforce, but that very easily can lend itself into kind of the black hat criminals and things that you're talking about, right? More of them are going to be able to do more damage as a result.
It's funny how if you just, I'm a big historian buff, and you just look at history, and every time there's been a technology kind of evolution, whether it's going from the horse to the car to manufacturing, all this kind of things, it's always doomsday. It's like, oh, we're going to lose all our jobs and AI and all that part. No, give you one example. My daughter wants to do radiology in university. But she wants to be a technician, right? Well,
Sure.
if you're going to be the one to analyze the actual, whatever they call them, the scans and all that come out, your job's probably not looking too good because now AI can do that. But nobody's
Right.
gonna. It's like the plumber. Everybody's talking about it. You know, plumbers, carpenters, electricians. Well, until we have robots that can do that, which might happen in the future, but I don't know. I think that's pretty far. Those jobs are secure. So yeah, AI is going to affect those mundane tasks that somebody can do on a daily basis, but a computer can do better. And it's the same thing in like you look at robotics in the my brother-in-law's in the automotive industry, right? For his whole career, his whole life, right? He's seen it where get all these workers on the assembly line to, oh, now they're all robots. Well,
Yep.
people they have to find different jobs, different roles. They'll find different roles. AI is actually, except for the cyber criminal part, which is, unfortunately, it's just going to be like cops and robbers, like over history, it's going to be the same. But yeah, AI is definitely going to make a big difference. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there right now that you're talking to that have already saying that to you, saying, "Look, I'm losing my career," which is
Yep.
awful. But hey, you know, reality check is in order. Maybe you have to do something else, right? So,
Absolutely. And a pivot into franchise is absolutely one of those things that many people are exploring, especially a franchise brand similar to yours that is on an upward trajectory that's
right.
not necessarily going to be replaced, but is going to be able to ride the AI tidal wave, so to speak. So,
Yeah.
if you don't mind, kind of walk us through a little bit of what a franchisee, someone buys into the brand, right? What do they actually do day to day? Whether they're an owner operator, a semi absentee, kind of what are those like tools or routines that
Yep.
they're going to be doing on a day in day out basis?
Divide it into a pie into three parts. Okay. The one third is we have a digital marketing team internally. I rival our digital marketing team, and what I mean by that is, social media, ads, SEO positioning, things that are very crucial to be able to developing your brand and your presence out there in the marketplace. But that doesn't bring in customers. That's just used as augmentation, as something to add on. Yeah, it can bring in some customers, but that's more of a long-term approach. We do that. We
Sure.
help our franchisees internally. The other third is networking. Okay, this is a people business. This is not a technology business. That's where everybody makes, I get a lot of tech heads that want to be part of this. And I'm like, you are not a good franchisee. I'm sorry. You don't have the communication skills. You don't have the personality skills. You don't have the sales marketing. You don't necessarily have to be a hardcore sales or marketing person. But hey, networking means that you have to enjoy interacting with people and making connections and developing relationships. Our business, our franchisees get 80 to 90% of their potential customers through partnerships with accountants, lawyers, insurance agents, like all kinds of different vertical categories of industries where they partner with them. So if you're an insurance agent, what I'd say to you is say, hey, Joe, you've got 300 clients. And we're copying the ADP model, by the way, the payroll company. They did exactly this many years ago, and a lot of their competitors copy them. I'll just say, Joe, hey, you have 300 clients. Why don't you just introduce me to your clients? And I'll share 10 to 20% of my top line revenue with you when they become a customer. Do I need to? Your typical responses are, well, I don't know anything about cybersecurity, or you don't need to know anything, Joe. All I need is a friendly door opener. That's really what it is. It's a nice warm door opener where you're giving me kind of a trust factor. In our business, it's all about trust. It's all
Yep.
about trust. So we can. I equate it to, um, you know, as a franchisee, do you want to go out and start pounding on every single small business owner's door? And I equate it to my term is get punched in the face by Mike Tyson every day, because that's what's going to happen. They don't know who you are. They don't trust you. You have none of that. Or would you rather partner with somebody that can open that door friendly and do it? Well, obviously, Joe, what's the answer to that? Everybody wants that, right?
Secondary, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how our franchisees on a daily basis are going to go out. That's the other networking part. So building those partnerships. You have 300 clients. you say, yes, I'd like to be a partner with you and let's work together. You can go in and access my clients. Maybe I get 5 to 10 of your clients over the next year that are spending anywhere from ten to $30,000 a year on services. It starts to add up quick. The other
Mm-hmm.
third that I talk to candidates, and we when people go through training too, is good old fashioned sales. It's just good old fashioned sales, and that's okay. You want, let's say for instance, one part of your day is like, I want to get another accountant as a partner. Okay, well, instead of sending out LinkedIn requests, instead of waiting for networking, okay, well, maybe what you do is you make an objective for this week to call 10 to 15 accountants that are in your area and just say, hey, would you like to become a partner with us? Well, now you're selling on a revenue side. You're not selling on the expense side. Okay, you're not going
Right.
in, hey, do you want to buy my services? And people are like, go away. I don't, it's like now you're going through the door and, oh, okay, tell me about that, right? And maybe what you do is you do go contact some companies directly that you think you can really help, and you call their CTO, CISO, or their IT professional, depending on the scale of the business, and just call them up and saying, "Hey, we offer cybersecurity services. Do it." So when you combine those three, I call the three pieces of the pie, okay, of marketing, that's what they're going to do on a daily basis. Once somebody raises their hand and says, "Oh, I have a request." Okay, great. Well, we bring in the tech team to be beside you so that you can do that. And as you grow as a franchisee in months and years, you'll need less of those tech people to be on those calls too, right? You'll still always need
Sure.
them, and you probably want to utilize them just from a position of expertise and a marketing perspective. But that's what our franchisees. So, I have franchisees say, "Well, I'm just a salesperson." I go, okay, have you ever been in your own business before? And they're like, no. I go, well, I don't care what business you get into, you're going to be a salesperson for your business. And if you don't think you're going to be, I don't know who you're talking to, but they're not giving you what the straight poop is. Okay. You're
Yeah.
always going to be a salesperson, right? Yes, your role on the day to day activity is going to be more of that development and all that, but you own an area, you own a territory. It's your business. So I get this all the
Mm-hmm.
time. I'm just a salesperson, I'm just a sales rep. I'm like, no. And then once I educate everybody, they're like, oh, okay, now I get it. It's just my role. Because a lot of franchise,
Mm-hmm.
there's just a few, Joe, there's a handful of franchises that really focus on that core sales kind of person, right? And maybe a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more than that. But it's the same thing with them, is they're growing a business, growing a clientele. So let's say, for instance, in 5 years' time, you have, I don't know, 50, 75, 100 clients, and you've got 500,000, a million, $2 million in revenue, you know, uh, then you can resell that. You own that whole thing. You own the clientele, you own the area.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about exit strategy, wow. I mean, we have
Fantastic.
an easy transition, no employees, maybe one or two salespeople, so all that, but not having to do all the technical work is when you look at the end result, which I try to help a lot of your franchise candidates and other people's too, is to look at the end road. Here's what you can build and eventually exit, or maybe you keep it for 20 years. I don't know, but at least the options are there. So I hope that helps to answer that question, Joe.
Oh, it absolutely does. And you talk my language now, exit strategy and planning
Yep.
for an exit. Even if that exit is you keep it, that's still technically an exit. Or maybe you pass it on to the next
Sure.
generation and it
Yeah.
becomes a legacy type thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, you're talking my language now. When a candidate first joins into the brand with you, what does kind of like that first 90 days of ramp time look like from an onboarding and training perspective to help them start to build that pipeline up quickly?
Well, I'm going to tell everybody what it's like, not what they want to hear.
I
Okay.
love that.
Okay. How's that?
Love it.
Your first 90 days is your MBA in cybersecurity. How's that? Okay. I think really that's the case in many businesses too, is people try to think that their business is going to accelerate and develop and get sales right away. I don't know about you, Joe, but I don't know a lot of businesses that happen that way. So it's going to take time for you to be able to develop, get those partners, relationships set up, get in front of clients and all that. But the first 90 days is doing that, is the training. We have wow, talk about a comprehensive training program. We have, one week, everything's online, so you don't have to travel, go anywhere. We don't send people out to you, but the first week is the boring classroom training. Okay, that's what I call it, right? You have to go through it. The next 2 weeks is we actually assign you to one of our franchisees, to be work with you on 1 hour a day and assigning tasks for the next 2 weeks to really get you to get up to cybersecurity readiness and ability to talk to people and all that and get out there and start pumping the well, shaking the tree for potential partners and customers and all that. Our sales cycle from a traditional side, the enterprise world can be 6 months, a year, 2 years. I mean, that's awful. I mean, that's the horrible part about that part of the business is the sales cycle. Not with small to medium sized businesses. I mean, you're typically looking at a sales cycle from anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 months, depending on where they are and what they need and all that. So that's a lot shorter, right? So you're able to generate revenue sooner. But we're very conservative, as unfortunately you and I are kind of got the duct tape over our mouth when it comes to predicting income and all that. For our nice government, we can not allowed to talk about that stuff. But I think at the end of the day, we want to be very conservative with our franchisees and say, listen, it's going to take time to be able to develop this business. But we're going to give you that great training in the first 90 days. We're going to start to shake the tree, pump the well in that first 90 days, and then we have a very well-stepped approach business plan for our franchisees. And why is there a top third, middle third, bottom third in every single franchise that exists? Okay, well, if your candidates, if they call the top third franchisees in any franchise, I guarantee what they're going to hear. They're going to hear, I just follow the system and I work hard. That's the bottom third will say, not that. They'll have every excuse in the book of why they're not successful. And really, those people we know, Joe, you got to turn them in front of the mirror and go, the problem is not the franchise or the business or the industry. It's you. You need to adjust you, right? So, and as a franchisor, you want to have as least amount of those possible, but it just comes with the territory, I guess. But at the end of the day,
Yes.
we want to be very realistic with people, and we don't want people to get in. We're not going to allow people to become franchisees that aren't in the right financial mindset, preparation mindset to be able to be successful with us. So we'll be very candid when it comes to the investigation process and paint that picture for them very clearly. And maybe that's not a good fit for them, and that's okay. That's why you have other choices, right? You can look at other franchises.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to find the right fit both for them as well as for you. And when you
Exactly.
marry those two up together, then it's almost like a marriage, right? Like y'all really truly can work in harmony to achieve bigger things at a faster, accelerated rate because there's alignment. So I love that. Obviously, there is numerical related data that we can't necessarily dive into when it comes
Right.
to like investments and costs and startups and things of that nature. But is there anything from a high level perspective that you can overview for somebody who's interested in the brand to
Yeah,
understand what that investment would look like,
sure.
timing, acceleration to break even, things like that?
I think our investment ranges anywhere from 75 to $150,000, and that's going to be depending on the size of the territory that you want to entail. I'll give you an exact example. Our franchisee, say Dallas, Dallas Fort Worth. He owns the whole market, and that's ideally what we like to have. But there's 5 territories there, so his initial investment was 150 plus a little bit more for startup costs and all that. That's at the high end. Where there's our franchisee in Nebraska, there was 2 territories, so that was 100,000. And then we have another franchisee that has 1 territory that's 75. So all in between there. So when you look at look at the scale of franchises, we tend to be on the lower side. I think what's really more important is that our franchisees have a home office, have almost virtually no overhead. They have a little bit of marketing, and they'll scale that up as they go, as they get more sales. So once you get sales and you're spending more on marketing, it's not really a cost anymore. It's an investment to be able to create more customers and more revenue, right? So
Yep.
when you look at our business model, is you don't have to have any employees. Now, if you want to hire somebody, if you want to hire a salesperson, maybe a setup person to be able to do those setups for you and book appointments for you, you can hire somebody full time to do that. But a lot of our franchisees go, no, I'm going to do that myself too. And we work with our team to be able to do it. Break even. There's 2 types of break even that I clarify. One is cash flow, and one is return on investment. Right? Return on investment I can't talk about because I'm not allowed to. But cash flow, because our overhead is so low, is that most of our franchisees just kind of look at their own personal expenses and what they need to cover for their monthly household expenses. That's what they need to cover. I know you probably do this, Joe, too, is, okay, my investment for my franchise might be $75,000, but, how much do you need to cover your expenses for your household for the next year? Okay, maybe that's another 75. Okay, well then add that into your investment. Just pretend you're not going to make any money the first year. There's your worst case scenario. If you can live with that, then go do it, right? Now, am I saying that our franchisees aren't going to make any money their first year? No, I'm not saying that. But it's as a business owner for 25 years, always plan for the worst, and then
100%.
expect the best, right? Some people plan for the best and don't plan for the worst. They're the ones that go into business and don't survive, right? So put yourself in the right place to do it. I think we have an advantage over a lot of other franchises is our investment is lower and our overhead is very low. So you don't have that monthly nut that keeps eating at you while you keep trying to make more money or especially when you try to scale. I have one of my buddies that owns a handyman franchise. I won't say which one, just for the sake of that. He's happy.
Gotcha.
He's in the top 10%, top 400 franchisees. He's in the top 40, does exceptionally well. But he's my golfing buddy. And every time we go golfing, you know, his one complaint when it comes to the business is personnel, is his employees. For him to scale, he has to hire another handyman and another one,
Yeah.
another one. With our model, you don't have to hire more technicians, more people to be able to scale the business. So that enables you to be able to grow and scale it at a lot more rapid pace instead of having to wait to hire somebody to do the cybersecurity services before I can take on more clients. That's a big advantage that we have over a lot of other business models too. Now, his model's fine. He makes great money. He's happy with it and all that. But he whispers in my ear on the golf course like, "Geez, I wish I didn't have to hire those handyman." But he says, that's the nature of the business. Is our business
Mhm.
is very unique. A lot of businesses don't have that ability to be able to do it. So, that's I think a lot of candidates. That's what they share with me, Joe. Is they're like, your business model is definitely more attractive when it comes to the employee side of it.
Absolutely. And the fact that you are a one of one in terms of your franchise brand, you're literally the only one out there that does this,
Yep.
also creates the capability that there's less competition, and gives you the ability to do just that and support your franchisees at a higher level and expand out as technology advancements occur, what have you. What is the long-term vision? I know you mentioned a reference like 40, by the end of the year, obviously US, but you're an international company, so are there
Yep.
global territories? Like, what are those growth milestones over the next 12 to 24 months look like for y'all?
Uh, for 2030, we want to have 200 locations worldwide. Okay, 40 to 50 in the U.S., probably 4 or 5 in Canada, and the rest will be and we're already in 7 other different countries for franchises. Now we do have partners that we said before that we work directly with in 18 different countries to be able to supply cybersecurity services. But that's our goal. In regards to revenue, well, everybody can put their own numbers out there. We have ours that I'd love to disclose, but for the sake of conservative, I'm not. But you do your estimate. If a franchisee does $1 million in gross sales a year and we have 200, okay, that's 200 million. If we have our franchisees are doing $2 million a year, that's 400 million. Okay,
Mm.
it's a lot. So but we can't do it without our franchisees. Is
Mm.
that no better to have somebody that gets up every day and all they're thinking about is their business to be able to facilitate it than no offense to everybody out there in the corporate America world, but I've hired many, many people over the years, and they're just temporary workers. No matter how long, I consider a temporary worker that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. That's a temporary worker, right? Is that in a franchise model, there's no temporary. We're all working together as a team. We're all working together to move the boat forward, if you want to call it, and it's a great environment to be in.
I love that. I love that. So, if you've touched on it a lot of the type of franchisee that you really want inside of your system, if you could maybe summarize it for us, what does that ideal candidate look for to get into your brand to help both themselves as well as you achieve those growth milestones?
Well, I've been very humbly, I've been asked to appear on different panels and stages and that to talk about success in business. And I'll just go to where this applies to every single franchise out there. Really, is people ask me what do you attribute to your major success in your businesses? And it's the answer to that is very simply, I work twice as hard as everybody else. Period. Okay? Well, if you work twice as hard with a bad business model, it doesn't matter how hard you work. You're going to probably end up getting the same results, right? So, for our business, for our franchisees, it's all about activity, 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 activity. Now, whether you're hiring somebody to produce that activity, whether you're doing the activity yourself, there is some compromise there that we can talk about in doing that. Ideally, we love to have people that roll up their sleeves for the first 6 months to a year in their business and get to know how to
Sure.
do what to do and all that. But we do have a couple of franchisees that have other businesses that are hiring somebody to do that. We're okay with that. But it's it's so simple. It really is. It's just activity, activity, activity. The nice part is we don't have a physical location where you're waiting for people to walk through the door. Is that, if you want to really spend the activity and gear it up and work as hard as you want with this business, there's no guarantee in success in any franchise or any business and anything you do in life. But if you're doing it two or three or four times more than anybody else that's in your industry, well, common sense tells you you're probably going to get better results, right? So that's really what it
Mhm.
comes down to is if you're not a people person, if you don't feel comfortable talking in front of people, if you don't feel engaging with people, this is not the business for you. Because I get a lot of technical people, oh, I want to be in cybersecurity. I go, no, what you want to do cybersecurity.
Yeah.
This is not our business. It's not. Now, if you have that technical ability with that combination of say, wow, that's a very powerful combination. But guess what? That's very rare. That's far and few
Sure.
between, right? So for us to teach people that have the communication skills, like that activity, sales and marketing, for us to teach them the icing on the cake is far easier than trying to take somebody that has all the technical skills and teach them how to run a business and sales and marketing. It's very hard to be able to do that.
I love it. Okay, Ken, this has been powerful. Like, if anybody out there is listening, you're looking for a brand that has recurring revenue, a future proof space. You don't necessarily have to have tech experience. If you do, it's a plus, but it's not a necessity. You come with the capability to network, sales, market, and be basically a people person. You can apply that to the systems and the support that they provide you, and you've got an exit ready business. This is fantastic. Ken, has there been anything about the brand that we haven't touched on that you would love to share or anything like that?
Yeah, one thing is we're going through a capital raise right now. There's only three of us that own the business, and we don't have any investors or silent partners or venture capitalists or anything like that that are part of it. But we are going through to kind of pour some more gasoline on this fire. So we're actually doing that, which is going to help our franchisees are very excited about that part of it too. So no, we're you're hitting us on the ground level, but way I like to say it is that we've got the house built. You know, yeah, there's a few things here and there that we're tweaking to get better. And, I think every franchise strives to do that, but we're 80 to 85% there. The other 10 or 15% will fill in over the next couple of years as we learn more of feedback and things like that. So I want to be very upfront with people. We are an emerging franchise. We're not like 10 years old and have 300 locations and basically just the person at head office says, "Do you see the book? Just follow it. Shut up. Sorry for that, but shut up and just follow the book." Yeah, our book is 85%, 90% complete. So there's still some stuff to fill in there. But that's exciting too, because we get a lot of feedback from our franchisees, and a lot of our franchisees go, "Well, I love being part of that, to be able to contribute, to help, to grow the brand, to become better." We're always going to strive to be better and to be that part of it. But it's an exciting time for us. It's exciting and stressful time, just like anybody else in a new business. When your new business owners become a new franchisee, the honeymoon's over real quick, isn't it? I mean, they're like,
Oh yeah,
okay, yeah, it's all excited. I'm a franchisee now. I'm a business owner, but now it's like, oh, I got to go to work,
gotta get to
right?
work.
I got to get to
Yeah.
work, and I got to make money, and I got to make this thing work.
Hmm.
We're definitely there, but what it is, it's a matter of being able to position ourselves to do it, in a very professional manner. And I think we're really there to be able to help and facilitate that.
I love it. I love it. Ken, y'all have taken a complex service, made it franchise ready with clarity and confidence. So I know I mentioned it a moment ago, but to the listeners, if you're looking for a recurring revenue model, which I highly encourage, if you're looking at any model, find one with recurring revenue that doesn't necessarily require tech operations. gives you the support to execute it at a high level, this is a brand to go take a look at. Ken, this has been amazing. Thank you again for joining us. We sincerely appreciate you being on.
Joe, I appreciate the time. Always good working with you, and look forward to talking with your candidates about CyberGlobal.
Well, we got some coming your way. Don't worry, Ken.
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
again. Appreciate everybody. Let's go build strategically. Thank you.